And welcome back. We are here with the first game of the first match of the Season 9 semifinals between Randy Buehler and Andreas Petersen. And Rich, you and I are getting our first look at deck selection here.
Wow.
Randy has chosen Xerox to Andreas's Sylvan Outcome, and I have to believe that this is exactly what Randy wanted. I
I
think
I
he,
think it
he really
is.
wanted to face the outcome deck with his Xerox.
I think it is. Now, Andreas could have had a mini outcome there.
Hmm.
On the other hand, if he finds a Mox, he gets a slightly better outcome.
Oh, he
And
did not.
it, it looks like he didn't.
I
But
have to
he'll
believe
be
that
able
was
to
bottom
defend it.
bottom. I don't think he would have chosen a polluted delta there.
No, no, no. There's a large delta between that and a card that he might have actually wanted. Um,
Well played.
Randy's turn is going to look great. He'll be able to. He has. You can play a JVP at a Jace Vryn's Prodigy and a Black Lotus. So he can pass the turn with a Red Blast open and advance his board. So he's looking good. The only downside is that Andreas is going to be able to build up a paradoxical outcome on his turn and flusterstorm Randy's efforts to stop it.
Hmm. I agree completely. And if this top finds a Mox of any kind, it makes it that much better for Andreas. He could be on outcome for 4 with Fluster back,
Right.
which would be a fantastic turn too.
He needs a little bit of help to make the Flusterstorm beat Black Lotus.
Pretty ironic, isn't it? Pretty ironic that a Fluster Storm by itself can't beat Lotus Pyro.
Oh, interesting. I guess Randy could actually use the Lotus here to preordain and leave Reb open.
It's pretty tempting to use all 3 mana of that Lotus here and now, I would say.
It
Because
is.
finding a Force of Will here would be pretty big game as well.
Oh, I agree. I really like the fact that both players have fantastic hands. If either player had a really, really good hand and the other guy didn't, this match would be way less interesting. But since both players' decks are really flying out of the gates, delivering 4 or 5 mana on the first turn,
Hmm.
this is what I want to see in the semifinals of the Vintage Super League.
Agreed. Randy found Tundra, which I actually don't, I can't tell if he bottomed or topped. I wasn't watching close enough. And Young Pyromancer, which he looks like he's doing a little agonizing about. That was bottom then, and he finds himself another Preordain.
In a lot of matchups, a turn 1 Pyromancer presents a nice clock for the rest of the game. Unfortunately, this isn't a lot of matchups.
Hmm.
And it looks like is that a Flusterstorm and an island? Well, the Flusterstorm's going to be really good for Randy.
Yeah, so he basically made a choice right there as to how he wanted the rest of this turn to go.
So is he going to play the Jace? If he plays the Jace, it won't work out for him because Andreas Petersen's Flusterstorm will beat Randy's Flusterstorm if he has a Mox.
Hmm. We'll see what the top found right
If the
here.
top isn't a Mox, well,
That counts
that's
as a
an
Mox.
interesting card.
It
It
plays into Mental Misstep, though. It's risky, right?
it is risky. It also doesn't actually net mana, does it?
Well, it's mana neutral because of
It's
the
mana
presence of Mana
neutral,
Crypt.
right? But what's really interesting here is you're right. If Randy had misstep, that would have been a disaster. But because Randy didn't have misstep, oh,
Oh
well,
my. He
well
topped into
then,
exactly a Key Vault.
wow. So Andreas Petersen had both vault and key on top of his library.
Wow.
And this is just game over for Randy. I guess Randy could hope that in Magical Christmas Land, Andreas misses a whole bunch of coin flips.
Yeah, because of Magic Online and because it's Vintage Super League, we're incentivized to concede a game that involves Key Vault. But with Mana Crypt in play, it's not deterministically over. So Randy might make Andreas do some stuff until Mana Crypt leaves play.
Right, right. And wow, I mean that's just a beautiful sequencing there from Andreas. It's how vintage works sometimes, right? You go from absolutely not having it to winning. And the
Hmm.
crazy part to me is that Andreas still had an incredibly good turn if the top two cards of his library were dwarven ponies.
So Andreas has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana, which is exactly enough to activate the key and paradoxical outcome. Actually, he only really needed 4 thanks to the having a Mox. I'm guessing that he will put outcome onto the stack here, and Randy will concede.
Yeah, outcome
Oh,
gets rid of the no longer pleasant mana crypt, and then there's nothing stopping Andreas Petersen from just walking through his deck at his leisure and brainstorming Randy whenever it
yes,
becomes convenient.
it's pretty funny that Andreas, he knew what was up. He outcomed for only Mana Crypt right there. Not even
Right.
Mox Sapphire, just only Mana Crypt.
I know people talk about doing things to make a statement. That really was making a statement.
So here we are, already one game in the books for match 1 of the semifinals. We get to see how each player approaches this matchup vis-a-vis sideboard.
How many Hydras do you think we're going to see? I hope we see a lot of them.
Andreas So Andreas has access to, in his main deck, 1 Flusterstorm, and in his sideboard, 2 more Flusterstorms. Those
Like,
seem highly relevant.
oh yeah, I think Flusterstorm's great.
And
Flusterstorm,
unfortunately for Randy, he didn't come equipped with Lavinia in his Xerox deck.
he didn't. He's playing white, and at this point I would have Lavinia in any red, white, and blue Xerox deck that I put together.
Mhm.
Looks like Randy's cutting Gush and not bringing in any Shattering Sprees.
Curious. I would definitely be interested in Shattering Spree over, say, some number of young Pyromancers in this matchup.
I would too. I always bring in 1 or 2 Shattering Sprees when I'm
Mhm.
facing the outcome decks because if you counter the outcome, sometimes when you blow up all those artifacts, your opponent just doesn't really have a deck anymore.
Agreed. It's very disruptive on the early turns, especially if you can just get a simple 2 for 1 on 2 Moxen. It's incredible.
Right. Now, curious to me, it looks like Andreas is not bringing in Lavinia. I like Lavinia if I'm on his side of the table because it stops Wills.
Yeah, agree completely, and it also makes it tricky for the Xerox deck to claw back from certain deficits in using something like Gush, Cruise, or Dig.
Well, although Randy's playing around Lavinia by cutting Gush. See?
Interesting.
I
Cat and
wonder.
mouse. Cat and mouse.
Do you think Steve's book has a chapter about this?
Playing around, yeah, Lavinia by cutting Gush. Not
Yeah.
yet, but it may
All right.
soon.
All right. We need the update.
Well, you're gonna get your wish about Mana Gorger Hydra because all 3 of them are in now for Andreas.
Awesome. Randy's deck actually can't deal with Mana Gorgia Hydra, can it?
Lightning bolts are technically capable of doing so,
So
but
Lightning Bolt gives
very,
50% added
very
to,
difficully.
right?
Yeah.
So
Lightning bolt has a
eventually,
very narrow window.
yes, yes.
Okay. Randy's on the
Wow,
play.
Andreas Petersen's hand is absolutely bonkers.
Oh, wow. Oh, turn 1, Mana Gorger with an Ancestral.
Yeah.
Incredible. Randy's hand is incredibly defensively strong, though. Look at that. He can play 3 counters on the first turn.
So
He- He's
you're
got an
right.
embarrassment of riches for disruption here.
He does have an embarrassment of knees. Um, I guess this is up to Andreas how to play it. And man, wouldn't a Gataxian Probe be really good in his hand right now?
No kidding. There are
If
so many interesting sequencing challenges for Andreas here.
there are, I mean, he played right into Misstep last game.
Hmm.
Oh, interesting. I really like this. This is actually going to be, wow, this will actually beat whatever Randy's trying to do, right? Oh, no, no,
Well,
because Randy can fluster back.
yeah, there can be a fluster fight here that Randy gets to win if
Right,
Andreas chooses to kick it off.
right. Well, I like how Andreas played this because he played in the way that is least susceptible to mental misstep.
Yep, agreed.
Now, Randy Randy's going to be able to win this fight, assuming that he can use his dexterity card correctly. But
Yeah.
I like the way Andreas sequenced this.
You know, Andreas has done us all a favor here by using a different art for Flusterstorm, right? Aesthetics aside, it actually
You're
helps
right.
parse the stack a little bit for he and Randy.
I agree with you, Kevin. I don't usually condone anything with the M15 card frame, but this does help us differentiate whose is whose, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Okay, so far so good for Randy's flustering a Flusterstorm. It looks like it has functioned properly. There we go.
Wow.
So, a bombastic first turn. Each player expending 3 cards each, 4 for Randy because of Force of Will.
Wow. So I really like baiting here from Andreas.
Mhm.
It's once again not going to work out for him, assuming that he just jams Ancestral now, which I think is perfectly good. Oh, it looks like he's going to wait until later.
A lot of respect for Pyroblast, but no, he decides to wait till the upkeep to do it, which is interesting. I'm not sure why he chose that particular timing.
Usually,
Why do you think the upkeep over just on his turn?
I don't know. Usually, because he knew he was drawing this and he wanted to tap Randy out. Um, no, but usually you see people ancestraling on the opponent's upkeep in order, so you don't have to discard to hand size. But since Andreas is so low on cards anyway, he doesn't have to worry about that, does he?
Mhm.
Oh man, it's Sylvan Library. So next turn, Andreas gets to go to the library.
And despite how well this has all turned out for Andreas here, at the moment, he's still I mean, Randy's not out of this game. He could
No, not
certainly
at
use a
all.
second mana for that Null Rod, but
Oh,
Sylvan Library is great, but oh wow.
Sylvan Library, given that he just drew Dig Through Time, is probably going to put this game away.
Yeah, that dig was whew.
The I don't think that Vintage has recovered from Delve yet. There's only two Delve spells, but that's twice as many cards as you usually get on the restricted list.
Yeah,
And man, those two cards are really good. I mean, one of them is an Ancestral, and one of them is kind of better.
agreed.
So,
Sylvan Library, unanswerable by Randy.
yeah, this is what we talked about. Red Blast, nope. Can't stop the Sylvan Library with your Red Blast.
So Null Rod, normally a haymaker in this matchup. Look at it. It looks a little anemic on this
I
board.
would play the Pyromancer here.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
I mean, at this point, the only real way that Randy has to interact with Sylvan Library is to attack, and that's it, and that's all. Wow.
Wow, look at that. 2 games in a row, Andreas
Wow.
just uses his look at 3 cards effect to find Key Vault.
That's the second time that Andreas Petersen has had Vault and Key atop his library.
Wow.
He played it really well, and it all just came to him.
So the fact that these cards didn't immediately go right into his hand suggests that Andreas is cognizant of the fact that Randy's been so land light that he could be drawing Force of Wills here. So it's not a sure thing that this all resolves. Force of Will on
I,
misstep,
I
of course.
agree. I agree. On the other hand, the fact that he has Dig Through Time means that if things go awry, he just starts digging through time and he turns all of his past failures into a success for tomorrow.
You're right about that.
I
And
would
there
have
we have it.
broken everything.
The first match of the evening is in the books, and Andreas is up 1-0 on Randy. Now, the mystery is gone. Players will be submitting their other decks, which means we're going to be on Randy's outcome deck versus Andreas's dredge deck,
Mm.
which I said before, I think Randy got the decided advantage in terms of matchups here. This pairing of matchups, I think, is far superior from Randy's perspective to the inverse. He
So
did
Randy
not want to have to. He did not want to have to play against Dredge without his Jeskai Xerox list.
Xerox does not like facing down zombies. No, that goes really badly.
Hmm.
But outcome is, I think, actually, I'm going to give the edge to Andreas here.
Okay.
It's less of an edge than he otherwise would have had, but between Mindbreak Trap and Force of Will and Mental Misstep, he has all the tools he needs to hobble Randy's development. On the other hand, at least for the time being. Occasionally, when you go to Baghdad, your evil necromancy sort of collapses in on itself, and you're punished for your misdeeds.
That's right.
In some ways, there's something I think extremely flavorful about the fact that dredge decks sometimes mulligan to oblivion. Right?
Agreed.
It's like
Agreed.
exiling your library off demonic consultation.
The bazaar giveth and the bazaar taketh away.
Exactly, exactly. Um,
So,
so,
owing to our pregame discussion, Andreas does only have two main deck Mindbreak traps for this matchup.
hmm,
So he runs the risk of just not having access to that for game one, and
true.
or dredging both of them away, which would give Randy ostensibly the green light, so to speak.
He does have Chalice of the Void in the sideboard, which is
Hmm.
a really cool card, and it's one of those cards that get a lot better when you're on the play. So if, as is often the customary practice, Randy loses game one, wins game two, Andreas gets to board into his Chalice for game three.
Hmm. Do you think that Randy will be bringing in Lavinias in this matchup?
I would. If I were Randy, I would. I've actually played a good bit of the blue decks against Dredge with Lavinia, and I've played a good bit of Dredge against Lavinia blue decks, and Lavinia is actually incredible against Dredge. She stops Force of Will and Mindbreak Trap. She also stops Dread Return and also Cabal Therapy.
Hmm.
So she actually both stops the disruption and the game plan of Dredge.
All right. Well, we'll see how the players choose when we get back after this break.
CoolStuffInc.com is your home for everything Magic the Gathering. Need singles for constructed or kitchen table play? Looking to pick up some sealed product or the latest in Magic accessories? We've got you covered with our extensive live inventory. With free shipping on orders of $100 or more, a 25% buy list bonus, and our ever-popular customer rewards program, CoolStuffInc.com is the place for all your Magic the Gathering needs.